So I was saying that in a co-dominant situation, there's no dominant allele, there's no recessive allele, but you can actually get both alleles showing up at the same time if you're heterozygous. The classic example of this is blood typing. So let's talk about blood types. All right, so there's a lot going on here. So let's just take it one by one. Let's consider blood type A for a second. Okay, so what you need to know is that every human has red blood cells. Red blood cells all have special little proteins on their surface called antigens. And those antigens are used for you to recognize your own blood cells. And then, as a result, also to recognize other blood types because you don't want foreign blood mixing with your blood. Some of the most dangerous diseases actually travel in your blood, and so your immune system has to fight off foreign blood and therefore recognize your blood. And it does that by looking at antigens. So every red blood cell has some kind of antigen. Um, Blood type O has sort of like a generic antigen. We'll come back to that in a second. Blood type A has specific antigens that we call A. Blood type B has different antigens that we call B. And then this is the codominant part. If you have blood type AB, then you have a mixture of both A and B antigens. And so there's the codominant AB genotype. Now, back to blood type O, there are still antigens there that are like specifically human antigens, but they're not specifically human A or human B. So there we go. Now, the genetic component is this: the O allele is sort of recessive. And what that means is that if you have blood type A, you could be homozygous for A alleles or heterozygous for A and recessive O alleles. The same is true for B. You could be homozygous for B or heterozygous for B. But if you have an A and a B, then you have AB blood, and the phenotype would be producing the A and the B antigens. So here's our genotypes. These would be our phenotypes, and we name those phenotypes as O, A, B, and AB. Cool. All right, so a little bit more detail here. You need to know the words antigen and antibody. Antigen, antibody. So just a reminder, I just said the antigens are those proteins on the cells used for recognition. And then your immune system is going to also make antibodies, which then stick to foreign blood, clump them together, and clear them out. So the antibodies are made to target specific antigens. So the way this works is if you have blood type A, you're going to make antibodies against B. So anti-B, we call that. If you have blood type B, then you are going to make antibodies against A. We call that anti-B. So ignore all this for just 1 second. Just ignore this stuff. Focus on these first two columns. If you have blood type O, that means you don't have the A or the B antigen. So you can make anti-A and anti-B. Those are both foreign bloods, and you would then get anti-A, anti-B. You'd kill any A or B blood that mixes into your body. If you have AB, now things get complicated because you have both the A antigen and the B antigen. So you don't want to make an anti-A because you'd kill your own cell, and you don't want to make anti-B because you'd kill your own cell. So you make neither anti-A nor anti-B. And what that means is that AB blood is often called the universal recipient. And that's what these diagrams are about. So if you took a person with AB blood, you give them O, they're good. You give them A, they're good. You give them B, still good. AB blood, they can take any type of blood. They're the universal recipient because they're not making the anti-A or the anti-B. Okay, let's flip that. Looking at type O blood. O blood makes anti-A and anti-B, which means if you have blood type O, you can only receive blood type O. But since the O blood type doesn't have specific antigens, anybody can take your blood from you, which means you can donate blood type O to anybody else. But if you have blood type O, your immune system is going to be very picky and you won't tolerate blood from anybody else. So O is called the universal donor. It can be given to anybody else, but unfortunately, you can only get blood type O given to you. The more straightforward examples, if you're blood type A, you can take blood type A. similar blood type, but you don't want to take blood type B. And then AB also, that still has that B antigen. So that's not going to work for you either. So you can take A, anybody can take O. If you're blood type B, you can take B, anybody can take O, but you can't take AB or A. Okay, so that's how that works. Go back and review it, read the textbook as needed, and that's where I'll leave that for you. So here's what you need to be able to do. You need to be able to solve a problem kind of like this. So here's a quick multiple choice question. We've got a pedigree and blood typing. I'm going to recommend that you pause the video and try this out. See if you can do it. Pause the video now. See if you can work your way through this, and then I'll work it out for you. Okay, pause. Pause. Okay, now I'm going to start solving it. So the first thing I want to do is just consider what the genotypes could be for each of these situations, right? So we know for certain the blood type O is going to have two little eyes. So I'm going to draw in that. Okay. The other thing we know is that if this kid has two little eyes, they must have gotten one eye from dad and then one eye from mom. So we know that both parents have to be heterozygous. So right off the bat, we know that individual one right over here cannot be AB because AB does not have one of those little eyes. So right off the bat, letter B is out of here. Bye. See you. Okay, so we also now know that the person up at the top, this parent, their genotype has got to be I, A, and a little I. They've got to be heterozygous if they're going to have a kid with blood type O. Cool. All right. We also know that number one is going to be heterozygous. So let's look at these options and see what is possible. So letter A says if individual 1 is blood type A and individual 2 is blood type AB. So if we consider AB, that would be IA, IB, and we call individual 1 blood type A, so that would be like this. Well, then where did the B come from? That's not possible, so we can cross this one out. All right, now I'm going to erase this stuff. Erase, erase, erase. All right. Next, C says individual 1 is blood type O. Okay, so that would be their blood type O. Individual 2 is blood type B. Well, again, where would the B come from? That's not possible. So, okay, see you. All right. Then D says, okay, let me erase this stuff again. D says, okay, well, what if individual 1 is blood type B? So we have I, B, and we know that again they're heterozygous because of this blood here. Could individual 2 be blood type A? Well, blood type A, one of these and one of these, they could get this eye from mom. They could get this eye from dad. Yeah, that is certainly possible. Letter D is the correct answer. And I hope you can see how I got there. If not, watch it again. Look in the book. I'm going to move on. The last thing we do is we have to talk about what's called sex-linked inheritance. Everything we've talked about so far assumes that the inheritance is on your autosomes. That's chromosome number 1 through 22. Those are the autosomes. But you could also have genes with different alleles on the X or Y chromosome, on the sex chromosomes. And that inheritance pattern is a little different because if you are a male, you only have one X. And if you're a female, you will have two X's. And so that changes how these alleles might get inherited. So just really quickly, just sex determination. Males have an X and a Y. So there's a 50% chance of the sperm having an X and a 50% chance of the sperm having a Y. Females have two X's, so there's always one X. So therefore, there's a 50% chance of having a boy and a 50% chance of having a girl. So what if we had some sort of gene that was on the X chromosome? I'm going to use X as an example because it's bigger, so there are more genes than the Y chromosome. So most of these guys are on the X chromosome. So if we had a gene that's on the X chromosome, its inheritance pattern would be different. It would be different. So the way we write this is, first of all, the way we write the female's genotype is we have two X's. The male's genotype is an X and a Y. And let's say we have a condition. I'm going to use red-green color blindness as an example. And I'm going to use the letter A. So A means no, not colorblind. And little a means you are colorblind. So let's say we have a female who has one dominant and one recessive allele. She would not be colorblind because colorblindness is carried by a recessive allele. So she would be what we call a carrier. But if a male has just one copy, he would have to be colorblind because there's no other copy present, right? So it only takes one copy for a male to be colorblind. So this male is colorblind. This female is not because she is what we call a carrier, right? So let's do a quick Punnett square. Let's say we have these two examples still. Let's say these two people have some babies, right? So we're gonna have a female carrier and a male who is colorblind. And we make a Punnett square. What we'd want to do is set up the alleles for our Punnett square. So here's mom's alleles. Let's do dad's alleles over here. So they could have, if they have a girl, oh, what am I doing? A's and B's. That's not right. Chris. Oh, dear. This should be a lowercase a. I'm not going to re-record this, but this should be a lowercase a. That's okay. Let's just keep going. That's fine. Everything's fine. So lowercase a, that's a lowercase a, lowercase a. So what we have is if they have a girl here, the first girl would be another carrier. Over here, they could have a girl with color blindness. That is genetically possible. They have a boy here. This boy would not be colorblind. Again, the Y has no gene present, no allele present. And then this boy would be colorblind. So there's basically a 50% chance of their kid having color blindness. So IB wants you to memorize two conditions that are controlled by sex-linked inheritance. Red-green color blindness is recessive and sex-linked. Hemophilia is another one. It is also recessive and sex-linked. So hemophilia is where your blood does not clot properly. Instead of doing this, you just keep bleeding. So your substitute also should have given you a worksheet with sex-linked inheritance. Complete that worksheet, complete the pedigree worksheet, complete the blood typing worksheet. Keep it all till I get back next week. Call it a day, and then you are done with bio for today. Congratulations.